not here now. And we decided to work with the evangelist that was basically an approach that says to us, it's our way or no way. We say that approach to the evangelist that was, it's not helpful for us. Let's use every opportunity to engage and try to get the health of the congregation back and improve its unity. And the second one was the question of being unable with branches of the ANC. And our argument is very simple that if branches of the ANC have poor quality, we're actually blaming the victims. I want to repeat this. Victims in the sense that when I'm a new member of the ANC, somebody does take me through a program of development. Then after a number of years of being taken through, I begin to understand the ANC. Now, if we have not done that work ourselves, then we can't blame those branches for poor quality. Actually, if they are poor quality, it is even more important for all of us to talk and engage in their presence, because that will contribute to improving their quality. Then we went to the actual challenge facing the ANC. We started with the external threats to the revolution. And our starting point, we must repeat this, that the mistake of committing in South Africans is this type of thing that was the ANC of Mandela, was South Africa of Mandela, therefore was the darling of everybody in the world. The big mistake. That are considered inconvenient and unsupported behaviors and replacing them with blind practical change that then partner in their interests. That reality is a reality in South Africa, is a reality globally. It's a reality everywhere. We made reference to a number of examples, like, for example, the question of use of color revolution, as we saw in the Rose Revolution. The Orange Revolution in Ukraine, Tulip Revolution in Kazakhstan, the Arab Springs in North Africa, we can list them. And we say the essence of color revolution is to create discontent, agitate, and then process graduate into revolts, and therefore remove regimes from power. And if it has the soft options are not working, hybrid options are an option, as we see in Syria and Yemen. Now, we're looking into the situation broadly. And we said, in the process of seeing here at home, elements of that are visible. Whether you take the Marikana situation, though when we discuss it, we normally focus on the brutality of the police. We never look into the question of trying to undermine an authority and provoke security forces into action. And therefore, faced with a massacre, and therefore it becomes a new crisis. We never go to that analysis. And I hope analysts like Obaundejan will do that research and actually give us some detailed analysis rather than being just conveniently looking at the incident. We look into the fees must fall, hashtag fees must fall. Quite an important issue taken up, but as you meet the demands, new demands get generated, it continues. As it moved on, you begin to see the change of the character of the protests. Then it comes into the burning down a library, burning down 2 buildings in the University of the Northwest. You can count burn a building in Rhodes. All those issues are signs of color revolution creeping into genuine protests. Zuma must fall marches. Maganda go Zuma, it's fine. Maybe Maganda. But Uba Maganda Uzuma, what is the character of these marches? What is the character of these marches? And our view is that look at them, analyze them, look at the difference of the character of the marches for Zuma and general protests in South Africa. Look at the demographics, look at everything. You can see that element of color revolution are there, which are aimed at removing a legitimate authority and replacing the blind puppet regime. Interests are different, and when in our analysis, in fact, sometimes it is becoming attractive even to our sections of the movement who are seeing it urgent that we want to see the back of the president. Now he must go now. You can join those marches even if they are organized by opposition forces. Therefore, if you can go, you go there. Whether it is a vote of no confidence in parliament by the opposition parties, you get there as members of the movement because it satisfies the immediate desire. The consequences of that action are left to very few for analysis. And you say those are the issues we raised on this matter. The other issue that we raised was the question of reinforcing the common purpose. Why are we a movement? And that's what pulls us together as the ANC and as the Alliance. We went back and said, let's go back. The NDR, the National Democratic Revolution, is that program. It's the program of the ANC and the minimum program of the Alliance. And we get into details what it means, the urgent need of resolving the basic interrelated contradictions in society based on race, which is the oppression, based on class, super exploitation, based on gender, patriarchal relations in society. And where we come from, we say we can talk of radical economic transformation. If it doesn't resolve these contradictions, it's not radical enough. Now, and the question of appreciating the fact that as a liberation movement, we must recommit to this common purpose. But if we're beginning to be all over about that purpose, the risk is that we will be talking at cross purpose all the time. Then we have a cacophony of noises from various leaders of the movement. That raised the question of adventurism and populism as an emerging tendency. And our diagnosis of that is that it is a tendency that emerges when a liberation movement is in trouble. And it begins to clutch the straws to gain instant popularity and support, and in the process derail its own revolutionary program. And we refer to the Cultural Revolution in China, which was an act of expedience on the failure of the leap forward to deliver the expected results. Then moved to the Cultural Revolution. It totally destroyed that revolution. Actually, we talk to the Chinese. It's one chapter in there that they would want to close quick and not talk about it much. And we say that risk is always inherent. And to try an example of the land program in Zimbabwe, we said it is very revolutionary to distribute the land. But because it was done at a point when the ZANU-PF was struggling, there was an element of clutching of straws. In the process, destroyed the food production. And then at Zimbabwe, which is a net food importer, when it was a food basket of the continent at a particular point. And you say, we must draw lessons from those before we we jump into left-sounding rhetoric that may actually create a crisis for us. The trust deficit between the people and the movement. We dealt with that in detail, and we say we went to the local government research, which indicated some of the issues that we should look into. And we think that we went through a number of the other issues that we should look into, but generally we're going into detail, very candid with what we see as challenges facing the movement and the revolution. We're hoping that this will help in the discussion in the plenary, tomorrow in the commissions tomorrow, and then solution. We chose just few ideas and said we don't want to preempt the commissions. Commissions must come up with solutions to these challenges. And then at the end of the commissions, we must consolidate the reports and come up with what is to be done. I want to stop there. On other items, you can ask any question. There are quite a number of them here.
Thank you very much, SG. It was a very long presentation of the plenary. I would imagine that your voice, you need a bit of a relaxing now.
Leave my voice, man. It's not for sale.
No, except to add, colleagues, that part of the reason we gather here for the few days to come is that, among others, we gather because as a people's organization, the ANC, we've got to reflect on the relevance of the ANC policies in addressing the aspirations of the people. For example, the question we should ask as we go to commissions: to what an extent the current existing policies of the ANC do address the aspirations of the Freedom Charter in the week we celebrate Freedom Charter. Whether it's the issue of land distribution, wealth, and so on, we are faced with the triple challenge of unemployment, equality, and poverty. To what an extent do we have policies now, 2017, that respond direct to that issue? Also in the document, the SC deals with issues that are not so much the protests sometimes we see, are not so much about service delivery, about issues of ethical behavior, the issue about revolutionary morality values, which in the document, the SG, in the diagnostic report, sometimes is that as part of the problems we come across as an organization, that ethical behavior is replaced with status. And that undermines the very same notion of people believing in the leadership of the African National Congress. When we have those notions where ethical behavior is replaced with status, it undermines the very notion of what it means to represent the people, to be a public representative of the people. I've just sort of made those points. Any questions, if any? I've not seen you in the ANC process for a long time, but I'll start with you and then Ranjani. Those are the only two hands for tonight. Wait. I wanted that going.
In the rules of conference, it's not allowed. Booing is not allowed in the rules of conference.
Mr. Natasha Peter Detoy from Huffington Post. Looking at this report, listening to you now, looking at the last 18 months, is it fair to say that the ANC is unable to deal with the issue of the Guptas and state capture?
Thank you. Africa Post.
Good evening, SG. My name is Ranjani Mansami. I'm from Times Media. I just want to find out, in your diagnostic report, you deal at quite a lot of length with the issue of the Gupta family and the scandals surrounding them and the scandals that have emerged from the emails. I just wanted to find out what was the reaction of the delegates when you spoke about this, and also whether at any stage President Zuma will be asked to explain why he took away decision-making from the ANC and handed it over to this family. Thank you very much.
Clement?
Kadali. No, Kadali.
No.
Clement Bangatela from Eyewitness News. SG, in your diagnostic report, influence some voters, and I'm just going to mention three of them: the cabinet reshuffle, the Concord
start with the
decision,
first.
and the spy tapes judgment.
Clement, start with the first.
The first one, it's
Selection of
the ANC candidate selection.
That's it.
But my question is
Then go with
specifically to the three ones, SG. Can you please share with us, perhaps give us a little bit of more details on that research? Did the voters have concerns specifically about the events which are mentioned in this report, or the individual that is involved or that is at the center of these events, the cabinet reshuffle, spy tapes, Concord decision, which is the president? Did they have an issue with the president, or just how these events played themselves out? Thanks.
The report is the report of the National Executive Committee, presented by the Secretary General.
Yebo,
So
yebo,
it's not his report.
yebo.
Samgela Masego from Jacaranda FM. SG, can you please tell us how did the delegates of the conference take the medication which some were refusing of the diagnostic report that you were presenting to plenary? And the last question would be, how did President Jacob Zuma react when you were reflecting on the issues of the controversial Dr. family, which are seemingly linked to him? And how did the delegates respond to the whole report, and why weren't they wanting to receive the medication which you were giving them? Thank you.
Okay, okay.
Or SABC. After SABC, that's the last question for tonight.
Okay.
No, that's SABC.
SG, the stalwarts have decided to have their consultative conference in September.
I must see you.
SG,
Okay?
okay. I'm saying this, the stalwarts have decided to have their consultative conference in September. My question is whether, as the ANC, you're still willing to engage them post this policy conference. That's my question.
See? I see there's a fight who speaks on behalf of SABC. I
Okay.
should have asked who's more senior. Is one day?
Okay. Imam Zandi, can I answer now?
Yeah.
Imam Zandi.
Imam Zandi. We'll come back tomorrow.
Let me start with the last question. The reality of the matter is that I don't think we should take all our time deal with an issue that is becoming a side issue to a policy conference that is underway. The policy conference is underway, okay? The National Consultative Conference has been turned down by the veteran stalwarts. They walked away. If they will come back and talk to us, we'll engage them when they come back. Now, the worst thing we can do is to talk to them through the media. They have not come back and said, we still want to have this kind of a meeting, okay? But now we're having a policy conference that is underway, quite serious about dealing with the issues facing the organization, and we'll continue doing that. And when you are dealing with organizational problems, you need any idea that can contribute to finding solutions. That's my answer to that one. I can see many of you are quite interested in the Guptas and the person of the president. Now, that tells me a few things. That you are going to be able to read this diagnostic report objectively. That's what I'm picking up. Because you are hoping that the diagnostic report should be a shootout about the Guptas and the state subject. Now, and it should not be a shootout, it should be a problem facing the organization, and we discuss it open and engage among ourselves. How do we deal and come out of this situation? So that's why when you say you are unable to deal with the Guptas, I was thinking as you were saying this, what should we do? Should we deport them? Because if we deport them, they will not be here. Maybe the problem will be resolved. And I said, but a political party can't do that. That's the function of the state. Should we invoke their citizenship? Again, we can't take that resolution in a policy conference of the ANC. Government and the state must deal with that issue. So when you say we can't deal with the Guptas, I don't know what the expectation is of the ANC in dealing with the Guptas. But if you talk about dealing with this state capture, it's a different question. Because state capture is something that impacts on the government and directly on the ANC. That we must get a solution. That's why on that matter, we agreed on the Commission of Inquiry. And our bet is to work on the Commission of Inquiry to be established sooner. Because once you have a Commission of Inquiry and in the judiciary, you are actually making an effort to establish truth from facts, not react to emotions. And the fact that it will be a Commission of Inquiry outside of the ANC, it gives confidence not only to the ANC but to society that there is an independent institution dealing with this problem. And we're thinking that that approach is a correct one, not unless you can give us ideas that you can deal with it differently. We are doing this with experience. We tried to investigate the question of state capture. 8 people came forward and they came back and said no. But if we give it to the ANC, are we not going to be dealt with in the factional fights and all those things? We said to them, okay, let's close this investigation, go to an independent institution. That's why they ended in the public protest as others with the Council of Churches. Now, many of people dealing with it, but they don't appreciate the fact that the same people who came to us, 8 of them, are in the public protesters report. They are in the SACC report. And therefore, those reports, when they come from independent institutions, society has a sense of belief that it's a serious investigation. I can tell you, if we did that investigation and came with the same report, all of you would be suspicious of this report is covering up. Whitewashing. Okay? So, that is our belief in dealing with this matter. What was the reaction of delegates? No, this question came twice. What was the reaction of the delegates to Guptas? What was the reaction of the delegates to the diagnosis? Now, can I tell you, when you ask me about reaction, the feeling, actually you're asking me a question that is totally out of reach of me. But what I can tell you is that having taken the report, delegates were quite warm to it. At the end of it, they were quite excited and actually quite happy that we had tabled that report. And the reaction can only be assessed when you go to the commissions and they begin to talk to the issues and come up with solutions. Then you understand that they're actually reacting positively or they're just having an instant satisfaction that things have been stated. That's it. The issues that involve the voters, you read them and you ask whether voters were actually concerned about the events or the person. Both. I don't know how can it be separate, something that is happening around me from me. Voters see that as one. Okay, that's how voters see things. If I'm involved, it's the event involving me. And then voters react. And that's why at the end of the day, the ANC pays the price. It's because it's not just the event, it's because voters begin to see leaders of the ANC involved in some of these activities, and therefore the ANC gets punished. That is it. There's a question of how did the president react
and the medication.
No, I don't know whether the president will react. That report is a report of the NEC. When had a special NEC on Monday, on Tuesday. This is what we dealt with. Actually, we took this final report to the NEC, of which the president was part of. So it's not a president seeing the report and therefore has to react. He's part of the report. And that's why if you go through the issues we're raising and go through his own speech in the morning, you will find a great degree of overlap between the two. Precisely because we take these things to the NEC and we're part of one organization. The more that happens, the better is the organization. That is it from the same page. What was the second part? Should we ask President here in the police conference? Conferences don't work that way, right? So when are you going to ask? No. We're in a policy conference of the ANC. Policy conference are not courts. We don't bring people as if we're in a disciplinary case and say, please answer your questions, or an integrity commission. Conferences don't work that way. Conferences just don't work that way. Even conferences of journalists don't work that way.
No, the point being made, Ranjel, is that when you formulate policies, whatever challenges you face, you don't formulate a policy as an organization because you want to address an individual. And I think that is a lesson in terms of the durability of the ANC policies. The reason we present them here is not because there's any person intended to be punished. It's because the ANC is not for us. It's not the property of these members here. We have a privilege to represent people of South Africa. We're a property of the people of South Africa. The question I raised earlier. So it's not the intention really. When you identify a problem, the intention is to punish somebody, no. It's to strengthen the African National Congress for the people of South Africa.
And congresses just don't work that way. And when we go to the NEC, where we discuss it and we give you a report, that there were these motions of President step down and so forth. It's a different set of an arrangement. If you take it further, you go to a disciplinary case, it's a different set of an arrangement. Now you can't just collapse all of those into one because there's urgency to deal with the president of the ANC by the ANC. So
Zwani Lembeje from the SABC. SG, did you get a sense that voters realize that if the continued infighting and factionalism is still there, they might actually pay the highest price in the next 2 years by getting kicked out of government when you engage them? Because I think as an organization fighting amongst yourselves to win control, it's possible one faction might win end of the year, but lose in 2019. Do you get a sense that there is that feeling that if they don't pull together, they actually might pay the highest price? The second question, what would be the attitude of the ANC to a question, to what President Mugabe has just suggested? You may not perhaps have heard of it, but I'll just indicate to you. He is basically saying he will invite President Mbeki to Zimbabwe, where they will talk about preserving the legacy of liberation movements like your CCM in Tanzania and the ANC, because the manner in which things are happening, they are losing their identity. What you may not have looked at this through, but what would be the response of the ANC given that an elder statesman and your ally in terms of the liberation movement is suggesting things like this?
Good evening, Alton Simpier from SABC News, all protocol observed, and Zandi Lembete.
Just a quick one on. You know, they normally say that you don't speak after your boss. SG, quite frankly, although this is a policy conference, it is the ANC that's introducing the topic of the Guptas into this policy conference. And
Come again?
I'm saying that although this is a policy conference, it is not the journalists, but it's the ANC itself that is bringing in the Guptas as a topic of debate by introducing this report, in where a few paragraphs have been dedicated specifically speaking about the Guptas. Is it not a matter of concern that the Guptas, whether these allegations are true or not, they've divided not only South Africa, but they've divided the ANC as well as it stands at the moment? And isn't the ANC running a risk of inviting what some would call foreign tendencies, where you place credence on the Council of Churches report, the investigation of the Council of Churches? They don't have investigative powers. Why are you introducing that report into this diagnostic report?
Legally
Yes.
or technically?
Both.
Can you pass it to Samef, please, before we get to problems? I know you're all members of Samef, but here is your chairperson speaking. Order.
This is Imakati Gallants from News 24. SG, you talk about how the leaked Gupta emails are harming the movement, and
Come
that those
again?
are harming the movement.
And you move on, okay?
The leaked Gupta emails are harming the movement, and those that are implicated should therefore own up. As the ANC, what should happen to those people that are already implicated? I mean, do you want to wait for the Judicial Commission of Inquiry before you actually deal with those that are implicated, especially where you've got the emails indicating that ministers were sharing confidential cabinet information with the Gupta family, which is a criminal offense? Are you going to wait until that Judicial Commission of Inquiry to actually do that? And given that you have identified the Gupta family specifically in this report, why then do you want a Judicial Commission of Inquiry that starts from 1994? Are we not running the risk of having another arms deal probe that takes way too many years with the name of the party damaged?
1994, does that come from? Where does 1994 come from?
When you had the press conference after the NEC, there was a suggestion that the Judicial Commission of Inquiry could start much earlier or would be broader. Sorry, you didn't mention a specific year. Some in the ANC have called it to start much earlier, but you were saying that it should be broader than the family. But in this specific report, you're not mentioning any other family but the Gupta family.
Who's that? Banu.
Colin Gambi from ENCA. SG, two quick questions. Is there a general agreement in the ANC that President Jacob Zuma should be the one who appoints a judge that will head this commission? And number two, the start of this commission of inquiry, when is it actually going to be, given what the president said in his speech today, that the longer it takes that the ANC investigates such things, or its government investigates such malfeasance, the more damaged the image of the party becomes. So when is it actually going to be instituted? Thank you.
First to Karima. Karima, you are my last one for tonight.
Thank you, Karima from ENCA. Two questions. Considering the description in the diagnostic report of the state of the organization, considering the description of the state of the organization, the branches, the issues around them being beholden to money and all kinds of stuff, is it your view, or can you express a view on whether the ANC as it stands actually has organizational integrity? Does it have the capacity to actually make decisions that are not beholden to all the stuff that you speak about in the report, whether it's money, position, power, all of that? Does the ANC have integrity as it stands? And then the second question is your analysis around regime change. I find it really odd because you don't talk about who exactly is behind trying to initiate regime change in terms of your understanding of global powers. Are you talking about America? Are you talking about the UK or the EU? And the reason why I'm asking this is because the ANC is quite clearly a capitalist organization. So what would be the motivation for these countries to want to initiate regime change when you are basically adopting policies that are particularly at an ideological and economic level? I don't understand this concept of someone else wanting to, get South Africa to a pliant, state. It's completely odd and bizarre.
The mistake I committed was to allow analysts because they intend to comment. So I should have stated that only journalists and reporters. Yes.
Should I start with the last one?
Start with the last one where the ANC is a capitalist organization.
No, I don't know if Georgia was at the time of the Rose Revolution a socialist country. Nor do I remember Ukraine as a socialist country at the time of the Orange Revolution. Nor the North African countries, all of them being socialist when the Arab Springs erupted there. Nor Yemen being a socialist country. So I think the location of regime change to an economic system in itself is a wrong starting point. Interest do not depend on the economic system. Interest depend on the wealth that big countries have interest in. So whether you're capitalist or socialist or a hybrid of the two, interests are not informed by that. That's my understanding. You put a broad stroke and start Western powers. That's what you said. Because let me tell you how the world works today. If I say here, America is doing this or Britain is doing this, I will have to answer further questions somewhere else. But no, the film won't find that. But what is important is that in our research, we have identified funding organizations. We have identified them by name. If you want that information, we'll give it to you. And how they operate in various countries. So once we give you those funding organizations, you will be able to know the countries. That we can do because we've done that research in detail. We did that research for Southern Africa liberation movements. And we did that in detail. And we have documentation to that. And therefore, whether the ANC is a capitalist organization which is running a capitalist society, it has never claimed to be a socialist organization, ANC. And it doesn't mean that, therefore, it is a puppet state for the West. Because that is the insinuation you're making. When you say, who can threaten you because you're a capitalist state, it's exactly the mistake I started with. Often that because we're a capitalist state, but the ANC of Mandela, what South Africa of Mandela, were a darling of everybody, nobody will threaten us. It's a myth. That is in the head of many people. including analysts, by the way. Now, no,
there are
you,
questions asked.
no.
No, there are questions asked. I'll give you a chance.
You can't have a follow-up question to a question that is not yours. Give it another turn. Yeah. Yes.
No, Imakabo, you have every right to raise your hand and be noted and to be recognized. I've noted you raise your hand, I will recognize you. Okay, proceed to the next.
But it will not be a follow-up question.
It will
be a question. Come, Kogen, son. Okay.
No.
Okay. It happens everywhere in Kogen. Of people, when they want to speak now and now, immediately. And then everything must stop, they must speak. Always teachers. Don't be full of self-importance. Respect others as well. So you always take us through this. When there's a press conference, people ask questions, when you're answering them, you want us to answer yours now. There are other people that you must answer to. Okay. Look at them, okay. Now, did voters realize factionalism leading to ANC losing elections? I don't think voters sit down and do that analysis. What happens is that it is the actions that we get involved in that switches off the voters. So it's not that about voters sitting in some room and analyze that if there's factionalism in the ANC, we should not vote for the ANC in 2019. Actually, it is our actions as the ANC leaders in particular that have an impact on the attitude of voters. So that's why it is our responsibility as a movement to talk about factionalism and the impact it may have to society. That then society will respond and react to our behavior. That's how it is. The Mugabe inviting President Mbeki to a meeting to see that things are not going well. I don't think there is something untoward about that. As liberation movements in the region, we meet every 6 months. Every second meeting involves heads of parties. Okay. Now, if President Mugabe takes a decision to invite former presidents to share ideas with them, it may help that discussion in the former liberation movements themselves. I'm choosing to see it as a positive intervention than negative. ANC bringing Gupta to the policy conference. We're not bringing Gupta to the policy conference. There's not a single delegate with a name Gupta in this policy conference. So we have not brought them here. What we here is the impact of what is happening on the ANC. If the influence of Guptas on the ANC and government is impacting on the African National Congress, then it is a business for policy conference. How do you deal with the Guptas in particular? Let me tell you how I normally describe this question. I say the question of the influence of the Gupta family on the state is an immediate problem. It's not the same as monopoly capital. Monopoly capital is not counterposed with state capital. Monopoly capital is the essence of the revolution. If we don't deal and resolve the problem of monopoly capital, then we are losing the essence of the revolution. That is an issue that we should deal with it as an issue. But as an immediate issue that needs our attention is the state capital. And therefore, because at the heart of the state capital is a family called the Gupta family, reported to have so much influence on government and decisions, It's a function of the ANC to discuss that impact. Then you say, we're putting a lot of credence on the SAC report. They have no investigating capacity. There is no organization that has no investigating capacity. None. Every organization has that capacity because you commission an investigation, you can commission researchers to do the investigation for you, which is what the SAC did. And it will be foolhardy of the ANC to just ignore that report as from the SAC, therefore it has no legal authority to investigate. They've done some work, we must look, and we always say the content of that report is not different from the public protector report, except that there's a lot of emphasis on the moral aspect of the report. And if you can see that we are actually reminding ourselves of revolutionary morality being an expectation to behave at the highest of standards as leaders of the liberation movement. If we don't, we begin to use the lowest denominator as a formula to measure our behavior against apartheid and other reactionary forces. It means we are handing our hands up in the air and say we have actually gone to the bottom of the run. Society is right to expect us to behave at the highest standards. And if we don't do that, they have a right to feel betrayed if our behavior is deviating from that. Emails. What should happen to those implicated? It depends what are the implications. If it's criminal activities, that is police case. Simple. The Hawks must be on that case if it is criminal. But the investigation by the Joint Commission of Inquiry deals with the details of the state capture, dig into it, and actually give us a report. Then Matasi talks of 1994. We said, let me give you the report again, because you just heard what you wanted to hear. We said, one, in the debate about the Committee of Inquiry, there was even an idea of stretching it back to 1948. And you said anything that happened between 1948 and 1994 is actually the apartheid colonial era. And therefore, when you deal with that era, you don't behave as if you expected anything better. And then we said there was an issue of starting from 1994. We said, how can we have a commission that starts from 1994 that investigates everything? We settled for, even if we go back, we must investigate specific issues. If we're investigating the state capital report, is that if we think that the issue revealed about the banks is an issue, you can add that. But the issue that must be added must be specific. You can't be generalizing, investigate anything that was done by the democratic government from 1994. That's what we said matters. Okay. On the whether the president must appoint the commission, it's not the ANC that agrees to that, it's the constitution that says so. Okay. So how we appoint a commission is not the competence of the African National Congress. It's a constitutional matter. And we said, let's have a commission that will comply with the Constitution. Because if it does not, we are running a risk of a commission that will later on will be challenged. You see. If you go through our report, you will see that we are raising a very important issue about judiciary overreach, which can lead to lawfare. Actually culminate into judicial crash. And in that, once that happens, there will be no political system. The judiciary will appropriate its right to take political decisions, and there will be chaos. And in our report, we say an immediate case study that you can look at immediately is the Brazil case study against the task of people with research capacity, professor. The Brazil case study, what is it that we should avoid? That has happened in the case of Brazil.
My last preference is Lucanio. No, wait. Look at, no, we spoke. No.
No, yeah. No. I don't think I should add that question because the beauty is in the eye of the beholder. If you think that the ANC has no integrity, it's your view. I can tell you that I believe that I, as a person, Secretary General of the ANC, have the integrity. Now, there is no general description of an ANC having integrity. That integrity is a function of the individual in the organization. That actually brings integrity to the organization.
Look at Bloomberg and you with the last. Just those three hands.
Good evening, sir. Lukhani Kalata from the SABC. On page 2 of your report, 1.7, you mentioned essentially the 2009 general election. The electoral performance has been on a decline between 2014 and 2016. And then 110 on the same page, you mentioned a couple of issues, the growing trust deficit between the people and the movement, the decline in the ethics, values, and traditions of the movement, the impact of the perception, the poor quality of branches, the decline in the ideological outlook of the movement. I read this and I think to myself, but isn't it because the ANC or members of the branches of the ANC, once they leave a policy conference, they then no longer care about what is actually contained in those policies? Because if they actually did live out the policies of the ANC, maybe you wouldn't have this problem. How do you then, going from this policy conference, try to address that issue to make sure that that people within the ANC members, the branches, that they actually espouse the policies of the ANC? Because in my opinion, if ANC branches actually knew or espoused the policies of the ANC, you wouldn't have some of the problems that you're facing now. Thank you.
Thank you. Mkokeli, can you pass it over? Can you the back? Gadiman and Gadian, have you withdrawn your question? Okay.
Thank you, Zizi. Thank you, SG. Could you please give us a breakdown of the branches represented in this conference, and also a sense of the overall ANC membership and a provincial breakdown, please? But also, I wanted to ask about the regime change, SG, and also just to get a sense of your thinking about this. Do you really think that South Africans, and especially those who took to the streets to demonstrate, that they do not have the agency or intellect to interrogate developments in South Africa on their own and reach the conclusion that President Zuma should fall? Thank you.
Thank you, SG. It's Govan Whittles from Mail and Guardian. You've mentioned the decline in the ideological content in the debates that are taking place in the ANC, and you've also said that the ANC risks being dissociated from its policies in the public eye because the way that it approaches politics in South Africa is very technical. So I'd like to find out what gives you the confidence that this policy conference will be able to emerge with a way forward out of the crisis that you have painted in the diagnostic report. And then secondly, considering that the theme of this policy conference is fostering unity, was the president not sowing disunity with his comments about the veterans before concluding his speech? Thank you.
There's a steering committee, as a head of steering committee, you are expected. So unfortunately, I have to suppress any further questions.
But
the steering party happened to the ANC that came up with 2 million and I come up.
let me preface this by saying you are working in the public space. You are working in the public space. In that process, you develop ideas and views. Others are very strong amongst yourself. the power of the pen is that some you develop into narratives that become repeated over and over and become a truth in the eye of the public. So what we cannot do is to take you out of that space, that is the space you are in. But where it will be a problem is when you want to make it the only truth in town, when it is actually an opinion. Let me get to the question of, we list the issue, the list of issues that we've raised. Actual Kalata, as are issues, all of these that are listed in that page they are referring to, are explained in detail in the document. And what is the purpose of a conference, be it a Polish conference or national conference in December, is that we always throw up the issues that impact negatively on the organization. That is part of actually talking to branch delegates and every delegate to say, pay attention to these issues, because if we're not addressing them, the decline will be perpetual. So, branch delegates that are here, I will be unfair to these delegates if I say branch delegates, they don't espouse policies of the ANC. I will be unfair to them. There are good delegates here who actually debate coherently, cohesively, who read. Okay. But what we are saying, when we make a general statement, we're doing an analysis of a mixed bag of branches. That's why when we talk of a decline, some talk of it as if it's exact, as if it's a natural science. And even ignore trends that are taking place in the by-elections, just as the first test. Because if the picture that is painted that we have lost everything and there's nothing, we'll be losing all the by-elections. We're winning by-elections, others with high percentages, which means branches of the ANC are not the same, and they don't interact with their community the same. There are branches of the ANC that deal with their communities very actively. Yesterday, this week, there was a by-election in where was it? In Mutela, where we increased our support in that branch. Now I'm talking about branch now, it's a what? It increased the vote support from 60-something to about 78. Now I cannot come here and say all the branches are in decline. I will be giving myself a license that I don't have. But we do monitor that when we lose wards in Mutu, that becomes news for a week. But when we win wars and take them from Muslim parties, they're hardly featured in the newspapers. They don't come through. They sometimes get mentioned in SABC Morning News. I thought there were 8 by-elections, ANC 1, 6, and full stop, and that's the end of it. And that is how that narrative developed, because when we lose by-elections, they become news for a week, because the narrative is to project the ANC as totally collapsing. But when we win those by-elections, you get a very short space of the by-elections today and won 8 by-elections. The ANC won all its wards and won one from this party and one from that party. And you'll never hear about that again. So when we talk to the branches, we're beginning to say to the branches, policies of the ANC will save you from decline. Go back, instill those policies into the discipline of the organization. And therefore, dealing with organizational issues is not exact. It depends on how many respond to it. Some will leave this conference and leave those documents in their bags, conference bags forever. But others are going to use those documents and try to correct the situation. The more we have branches that do that at branch level, the better is our chance to improve our performance and change the image of the ANC. Now, regime change. I could see, Sam, that you are agitated about this thing, that we are declaring people who march as no-brainers, we're just driven by regime change. No, that's not what we're saying. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying, regime change as a modus operandi, when it uses color revolution, it's agitating discontent and people take up relevant issues. And it will not be everybody who is that much who will be thinking about regime change. The rest of the people in that march will be marching because there has been an articulation of an issue that touches them on the wrong side. And they join the march. But what we're saying is that when there's that regime change, I can tell you that when color revolution started in Libya, I'm sure Colonel Muammar Gaddafi didn't expect that it will culminate in him being overthrown. And I'm sure not everybody who started the march had the aim of removing Muammar Gaddafi. But as it grew in popularity, it culminated in the removal of an uncomfortable government in Libya and hope to replace it with a blind government. And today, we don't have a government in Libya. We have some small pockets of organization all over, many years thereafter. You can say the same thing about Iraq, Sam. You can say the same thing about Afghanistan. Regime change, instability forever thereafter. All we're saying is that South Africans and the ANC in particular must never be in a mythical situation of things that is a darling of everybody in the world. Nothing will ever happen here. We must always analyze the characters of a protest. That's the essence of the point of it. The crisis painted, will we unite what? I've missed it.
The question was, do we think that given the challenges, the ANC may emerge united?
Come again?
He was asking about membership.
No, credentials. No. I gave you the same answer I gave to Ziz yesterday. Credentials have just been read. They can be circulated to journalists, okay? Yeah, because they've been circulated. We have 3,700 and something delegates in the room today. Yeah. The crisis painted, will we ever unite the ANC? If we didn't have the hope that we would unite the ANC, we wouldn't have convened the conference. Yeah? When we convene a conference, we're debating and the intention is to come out of the conference more united. The question of the president and the veteran and stalwarts, I don't want to get into that really. What we said about stalwarts and veterans is the position of the ANC. Okay. Come again? No, the president was making a speech to conference.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. It's been a long first day. Good evening. Tomorrow we'll have Jeff. We'll advise you on time. It may not be 9 o'clock, but we will have Jeff sometime during the day tomorrow on the NPC. No, MTP. Good evening. Thank you.